The city smelled of smoke, iron, and fear. Strange lights glowed above the narrow streets, red and blue shadows dancing on the walls. The market was alive, but not in a normal way. It was alive with whispers, chains, and cries that were too soft, too weak. He walked slowly, his eyes scanning every corner. He had traveled across many worlds, but this place felt wrong. It was not just a trade market, it was a prison in disguise. On both sides of the street there were cages. Some were made of metal, some of glass, and some of strange living wood that pulsed like it had a heartbeat. Inside those cages were living beings, not animals, not fully human either. Some looked like broken soldiers. Some looked like hybrids, creatures shaped by cruel hands. They sat in silence, their eyes empty, their spirits crushed. He tried not to look, but every cage pulled his gaze like a magnet. He felt the weight of their suffering pressing against his chest. The sellers shouted loudly, their voices rough and greedy. They spoke of price and property, not life. And then he saw her. In the middle row, chained inside a dark cage, she sat on the ground. Her head was lowered, her hair messy and tangled. A thick iron collar was around her neck, and heavy chains bound her wrists. A small sign hung on the cage door. The letters were written in alien script, but he could read the translation. Pleasure animal. The words hit him like a knife. His stomach turned. He had seen many cruelties in his life, but this was worse. He forced himself to look away, but something made him stop. Slowly, the girl lifted her head. Her face was thin, her eyes tired, but behind them was a light, something alive, something unbroken. She did not look like the others. She looked directly at him. Her eyes locked onto his. It was not the stare of an animal. It was not the stare of a slave. It was human. It was real. And then, in a voice so soft he almost thought he imagined it, she spoke. "Take me home." The sound froze him in place. His breath caught in his throat. She had spoken in clear human words. Not alien, not broken speech. Human. He stepped closer, his heart beating faster. The guards nearby gave him sharp looks, warning him without words. He ignored them. The girl did not blink. Her gaze was heavy, filled with pain, but also with something else. Hope. It was as if she had been waiting for him. As if she knew he would come. He whispered back, not sure if she could hear him through the bars. "Home? Where's your home?" Her lips moved again. "Not here. Not this place. Please, take me away." His mind raced. This was impossible. The slavers told everyone that these creatures were no longer truly human, that they had been changed, broken, made into tools. But her words, her eyes, her voice, it was proof. She was still human inside. One of the guards stepped forward, his alien skin shining under the red lights. His eyes narrowed. "Do not waste your time, traveler. This one is nothing. Broken stock, cheap animal, not worth your credits." The guard gave a cruel smile. "Unless you want her for the same reason others do." Anger boiled inside him. He clenched his fists, but he forced himself to stay calm. If he showed too much, they would know. He looked back at the girl. She kept her eyes on him, silent, waiting. The guard laughed and turned away, thinking the traveler had lost interest. But inside, the traveler's mind was burning. He could not walk away now. He could not forget her voice. He had seen her humanity. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it. The market around him grew louder. More sellers shouting, more cages rattling, more deals being made. But all he could hear was her voice echoing in his head. "Take me home." He stepped back, his heart pounding, and turned down the crowded street. He pretended to leave, but in his mind, a dangerous choice had already been made. He would come back for her. He walked deeper into the shadows of the city, but the image of her chained body and her burning eyes followed him. He tried to imagine the risk. Guards everywhere, laws that punished anyone who touched slave property, dangers beyond number. But none of that mattered, because for the first time in years, he had seen something worth fighting for. And he knew one thing. This was not the end of their story. It was the beginning. The night fell heavy over the alien city. Strange moons glowed above the rooftops, painting the streets in silver and red light. The traveler moved quickly, slipping into narrow alleys, always checking behind him. He had left the market, but the image of the girl chained inside the cage refused to leave his mind. Her eyes, her voice, those words. "Take me home." He walked past tall towers of metal and stone, past broken signs that flickered with alien letters. Crowds filled the streets, but he felt alone. The question echoed inside him again and again. Should he help her? Or walk away? He knew the truth. Taking her would mean trouble. The slavers ruled this city. They had power, soldiers, and no mercy for anyone who broke their rules. A single mistake and he would end up in chains beside her, or worse. But then he remembered her eyes. They were not empty like the others. They carried fire, and once he had seen that fire, he could not ignore it. He found a quiet place between two abandoned stalls. There in the shadows, he leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. He tried to think like a soldier, like the man he had trained to be, cold, careful, logical. She is not your problem, he told himself. You came here for supplies, not to start a war. She is only one girl, one prisoner among thousands. But another voice inside him spoke louder. If not you, then who? If you walk away, she will die in chains. He opened his eyes and the desist. Iron pressed harder on his chest. His hands shook. His heart raced. He was afraid, not of the slavers, not of the guards. He was afraid of the choice he was about to make, for in that moment, he realized something dangerous. He could not leave her. Back at the market, the night had grown quieter. Fires burned low, and most buyers had gone. The slavers drank and laughed near the cages, their voices thick with arrogance. The girl sat in her cage, head lowered again, but her ears listened carefully. She remembered the man who had looked at her with human eyes, the only one who had not seen her as an animal. She whispered to herself, so soft no one could hear, "Please, come back." And in the distance, hidden in the dark, he was already watching. He moved closer, keeping to the shadows. His cloak blended with the walls, his boots silent on the ground. Years of training had made him a ghost when he needed to be. His eyes scanned the guards. Two stood near her cage, weapons resting against their shoulders. Another walked lazily along the row, checking locks. It would be hard, but not impossible. He touched the small blade hidden inside his sleeve. It was not much, but it was enough. He could not fight the whole city, but he could fight for her. His breath slowed, his eyes locked on the cage. She raised her head, as if sensing him. Their eyes met again, and in that instant, his fear faded. The choice was made. A guard turned and noticed him. "You there," the alien growled, his voice deep and cruel. "Market is closed, no business now." The traveler forced a calm smile. "I was just looking, nothing more." The guard spat on the ground. "Then go, this one is not worth the trouble." He slapped the cage with his hand, making the girl flinch. "Broken animal, cheap stock, soon she will be sent to the mines." The traveler's jaw tightened. His hand itched to strike, but he forced himself to stay calm. He could not fight yet, not here, not with all eyes on him. So he nodded slowly, turned away, and walked down the street. The guards laughed at his back. They thought they had scared him off. But deep inside, the traveler whispered to himself, "Tonight, I will return tonight." The girl sat in silence, her heart sinking as she watched him leave. For a moment, she thought she had been wrong, that he was just another man passing by, that her hope was foolish. But then, as he vanished into the shadows, she caught one last look in his eyes, a look that said, "Wait for me." Her heart beat faster. For the first time in years, she believed. Far from the market, in a hidden corner of the city, the traveler prepared. He checked his weapons, a small pistol, a blade, and a pack with just enough gear to escape the streets. Not much, but all he had. He closed his eyes and whispered, almost like a prayer, "This is madness, but I will not let her die here." The night grew colder. The streets emptied. The guards at the market drank more and grew lazy. And in the silence, the traveler moved again. Step by step, shadow by shadow, his heart steady now, his choice complete. He would free her, no matter the cost. The market was quiet now. Fires burned low, and the laughter of the guards had turned into drunken snores. The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the clinking of chains and the faint cry of some creature far away. From the shadows, the traveler moved. Every step was careful, every breath slow. His cloak wrapped around him like the night itself. He had returned, and this time, he would not leave without her. Her cage stood near the center row. The iron bars glistened in the red light, and the heavy lock looked almost alive, pulsing with alien metal. Inside, she sat with her head lowered, pretending to sleep. But her heart beat fast, as if she already knew. The traveler stopped just a few feet away. He waited, watched. Two guards leaned against the wall nearby, bottles in their hands. At their speech slurred, another one walked lazily back and forth, his eyes half closed. The moment was fragile. One wrong sound, one wrong move, and everything would collapse. He stepped closer. The ground creaked beneath his boot, and the girl's head lifted instantly. Her eyes widened when she saw him. Hope lit up her face, but she said nothing. She only stared, as if afraid her voice might break the moment. The traveler crouched by the lock. He pulled a small tool from his sleeve, a simple piece of wire, but strong enough for this job. His fingers worked quickly, twisting, pressing, listening to the faint clicks inside the alien lock. Every second felt like an hour. Sweat ran down his face. His heart hammered so loudly he feared the guards might hear it. Then, click. The lock opened. The cage door swung slightly. The girl's eyes filled with tears, but still she did not speak. She only waited for his signal. He touched his lips with one finger. "Quiet," he whispered. She nodded. He reached inside and took her hand. Her skin was cold, her wrist bruised by chains, but her grip was strong, stronger than he expected. And then, everything went wrong. The guard on patrol turned the corner at that exact moment. His eyes caught the open cage. His drunken haze vanished, replaced by fury. "Thief!" he shouted, his voice breaking the silence like thunder. "Stop him!" The two other guards stumbled awake. Bottles dropped, weapons lifted. The traveler cursed under his breath. He pulled the girl out of the cage. "Run!" The street exploded with noise. Alarms rang out, sharp and metallic, echoing across the market. Slavers rushed from their tents, shouting orders. Chains rattled as other prisoners stirred, sensing something was happening. The traveler and the girl darted into the alley. Behind them, the guards roared and chased. Blades clashed against walls, boots pound. Dead against stone. "Faster," he urged. The girl's breath came hard, but her feet moved quickly, almost too quickly. Her chains clinked, slowing her down, but her body carried strength she should not have had after so much suffering. They turned a corner, but another group of guards blocked the path. Alien eyes glowed in the dark, weapons raised. The traveler pulled out his pistol. A sharp flash lit the alley, and the first guard fell with a scream. He swung his blade at another, cutting deep, but there were too many. Then something happened. The girl raised her chained hands. Her eyes burned with strange light, a glow he had not seen before. She let out a cry, not of pain, but of power. A wave of force blasted outward. The guards staggered back, their weapons torn from their hands. The ground itself shook, cracks running through the stone. The traveler froze in shock. "What are you?" he whispered. She turned to him, her chest heaving. "I don't know, but I will not go back." They ran again. Through alleys, through broken doors, through narrow streets that twisted like a maze. Behind them, the city roared with anger. Bells rang, voices shouted. Hunters were coming. The traveler felt his lungs burn, but he pushed forward. The girl's strength surprised him. Despite the chains, she kept pace, sometimes even pulling him faster. At last, they reached the outer wall of the market. A gate loomed ahead, guarded by two massive alien beasts, their eyes glowing, their jaws filled with steel teeth. The traveler gritted his teeth. "We can't go through." But the girl stepped forward. Her chains rattled as she lifted her hands again. The beasts growled, lowering their heads, ready to strike. Her eyes flashed. The air trembled. And then, to the traveler's shock, the beasts stopped. Their growls faded into whimpers. They stepped aside as if bowing to her will. The guards shouted from behind, rushing closer. The traveler grabbed her hand again. "Go!" They sprinted through the gate out into the open wilds bay. On the city, the night air hit them fresh and cold. Stars burned above like silent witnesses. The city roared behind them, but for the first time they were free of its chains. They collapsed behind a rocky hill, gasping for breath. The traveler turned to her, his eyes wide. "You saved us. But what did you do back there?" She looked at him, her eyes still glowing faintly. "They tried to break me. They changed me. But something inside resisted." She looked away, her voice shaking. "I don't know what I am anymore." The traveler stared at her, silent, fear mixed with awe. He had freed a prisoner, but maybe also something far more dangerous. Yet when she turned back to him, her voice was soft again, almost fragile. "You promised," she whispered. "You said you'd take me home." He nodded slowly. "Yes, I will, whatever it takes." But deep in his heart, one thought echoed like a shadow. What if her home is not safe? What if her home is not even human? The night stretched long as they moved farther from the city. Behind them, the glow of alien fires faded into the distance. The sounds of bells and alarms still echoed faintly, but soon even those were swallowed by silence. The traveler led the girl through narrow valleys and broken ruins, places where the slavers would not search. His steps were steady, but his mind was storming. She followed close behind, chains still rattling with every movement. Yet she did not stumble. Her body carried a strange strength, as if the chains weighed less on her than they should. At last, when the horizon began to pale with the first touch of dawn, they found shelter. It was the remains of an old building, its walls half broken, its roof torn open to the stars. Dust and vines covered the stones, but it was safe enough. The traveler lowered his pack and lit a small fire. Its glow spread warmth against the cold morning air. The Guy. Arl sat near it, hugging her knees, staring into the flames. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, he broke the silence. You saved us back there. What you did. With the guards, with the beasts. That was not human. She looked up at him. Her eyes, though tired, still held that same unbroken light. I know, she said softly. They made me this way. He leaned closer. Made you. How? Her voice trembled, but she forced the words out. I was not born in that cage. I was taken. From a colony. Years ago. A human colony, far from here. My family lived in peace until they came. The slavers. The scientists. They burned everything. They took those who survived. They took me. Her hands gripped her chains tightly. They used machines, chemicals, experiments. They said they wanted to turn humans into tools. Some for work, some for war, some for other things. Her voice cracked. She looked away, her face hidden in shadow. The traveler's chest tightened. He had seen cruelty before, but hearing it in her voice gave the pain a shape, a weight. What about the others? He asked. They broke, she whispered. Their minds shattered. They forgot who they were. That's why you see them in cages. Empty eyes, empty souls. The slavers call them animals because that is all they become. She lifted her head then, and her eyes burned brighter. But I refused. I fought inside. They changed my body. They gave me strength, powers I cannot explain, but they could not take my memory. They could not take my will. Her words hung in the air like fire. The traveler studied her carefully. She was not lying. Her voice carried truth sharper than any blade, and yet it scared him. A girl who could break chains, who could bend beasts to her will. She was more than human now. You don't trust me, she said quietly. He blinked, caught off guard. She gave a small, sad smile. I see it in your eyes. You think I am dangerous. And maybe I am, but I am still me. I am still human. I am still me. Her voice shook at the last word, as if she went, ear pleading for him to believe it. The fire crackled between them. The traveler said nothing at first. Then he reached into his pack and pulled out a small cloth. He moved closer and gently wrapped it around her wrists, covering the bruises from the chains. You are not an animal, he said firmly, and you are not alone anymore. Her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time, she let herself cry. Hours passed. The fire burned low, and the sky turned brighter. She leaned against the wall, her breathing steady now. Sleep finally took her, though her chains still rattled faintly in her dreams. The traveler sat awake, watching the entrance of the ruin, his blade resting on his lap, but his mind was far from the doorway. Her story haunted him, the colony, the experiments, the broken humans. He wondered how many others were still out there, lost in cages across the galaxy. And he wondered if saving one girl was enough, or if he had just stepped into a war far bigger than himself. He looked at her again. Even in sleep, her face carried both pain and strength. She was not just another prisoner. She was proof. Proof that humanity could not be erased. And maybe, proof that something new had been born. When she woke, the sun was rising. Golden light poured through the broken roof, painting the ruin in warmth. She rubbed her eyes and sat up slowly. Where will we go? She asked. The traveler took a deep breath. Away from here, as far as we can. I have a ship hidden beyond the mountains. If we reach it, we can escape this world. Her eyes brightened. A ship. She whispered the word like it was a dream. He nodded. But it won't be easy. They will hunt us. They won't stop. She straightened her back, her voice steady now. Then let them come. I am done being chained. For a moment, the fire in her voice reminded him of soldiers he once knew, people who had nothing left, but still chose to fight. He nodded slowly. Then we fight. Together. And as they left the ruins, stepping into the light of the new day, both knew something had changed. She was no longer just a girl he had freed. She was something more. and the truth she carried would change everything. The morning air was sharp and cold as they left the ruins. The city lay far behind them now, but danger was not gone. The traveler knew it would never be gone, not until they left this world. The girl walked beside him, her chains still clinking softly. She did not complain. Her eyes scanned the horizon, alert and ready. The fire he had seen inside her had not faded. It burned brighter with every step. But he also knew the slavers would not stop. A runaway slave was not just a loss. It was an insult to their power. They would hunt until blood was spilled. And soon, the hunt began. It started with the sound of horns. Deep, metallic horns echoing across the valleys. The traveler froze, listening. He recognized the sound. It was a call to hunters, a signal that prey had escaped. The girl's eyes widened. They know. Yes, he said grimly. And they are close. In the distance, the dust rose. Dark figures moved across the ridges, riding strange beasts with glowing eyes. Their shadows grew larger with every heartbeat. The traveler grabbed her hand. Run! They sprinted down the slope, their feet kicking up dirt and stone. The land was rough, filled with cracks and jagged rocks. Behind them, the hunters gave chase, their voices sharp and cruel, their beasts roaring as they closed the distance. The girl stumbled once on the rocky ground, but the traveler pulled her up. Keep going! She nodded, forcing her legs to move faster. Despite the chains, she kept pace. The sound of her breath mixed with his own, sharp and desperate. They reached a forest of twisted black trees. The branches hung low, their shapes strange, almost like claws. The traveler pulled her inside. Stay close, he whispered. The hunters followed. Their beasts crashed through the chouan. Trees, snapping branches with their heavy steps. Arrows whistled past, striking the ground, embedding into trunks. The air filled with the hiss of weapons. The traveler fired his pistol once, twice, dropping 2 hunters, but more replaced them. The forest seemed alive with enemies. The girl looked around, her eyes glowing faintly again. I can help. He shook his head. Not yet. Save your strength. But fate gave them no choice. A beast leapt forward, crashing through the trees. Its massive jaws opened wide, rows of steel teeth gleaming. The traveler raised his blade, but the creature was too fast. The girl stepped forward, her chained hands lifted high. A cry ripped from her throat, not of fear, but of command. The beast froze mid-leap. Its body trembled, its glowing eyes flickering. Then slowly, it lowered its head, whimpering like a broken hound. The hunter riding it shouted in rage, striking the creature with his whip. But the beast turned on its master instead, crushing him beneath its weight. The traveler stared in shock. Her power was not just strength, it was control. She turned to him, her eyes blazing. I told you, they cannot own me. They pushed deeper into the forest, but the hunters adapted. Smoke bombs hissed through the air, filling the woods with choking clouds. The girl coughed, covering her mouth. The traveler dragged her forward, his own lungs burning. Shadows moved in the smoke. Figures appeared and vanished. Blades scraped. Boots pounded. One hunter lunged at them from the side, his blade flashing. The traveler barely blocked in time. Steel rang against steel. The clash was fierce, the hunter strong, but the traveler fought with precision. A swift strike to the leg, then a stab to the chest. The hunter fell. But more came. Always more. At last, they broke free of the smoke. The trees thinned and a river stretched ahead, its waters, fast and wild. The traveler cursed under his breath, too wide to cross quickly. The hunters closed in behind them. The horns blew again, closer now. The girl stepped forward, her chains rattling. She stared at the rushing water, her eyes narrowing as if listening to something beyond sound. What are you doing? The traveler asked. Trust me, she whispered. She lifted her hands, and the air trembled. The river shuddered as if some invisible hand pressed against it. The water split, opening a narrow path across the stones beneath. The traveler's eyes widened. That's impossible. Her voice was firm. Go, now. He hesitated only a second before pulling her forward. Together they crossed, the water roaring on either side of them like angry beasts. Behind them, the hunters reached the riverbank, but when they tried to follow, the waters crashed back with violent force, sweeping them away. On the far side, the traveler and the girl collapsed, gasping for breath. The river's roar faded into the distance, leaving only the sound of their hearts. The traveler looked at her, still shaking from what he had seen. You're more than human now. Whatever they did, you carry power I can't understand. Her face was pale, sweat dripping from her forehead. Every time I use it, I feel weaker. But I won't stop, not until I'm free. He stared at her in silence, torn between awe and fear. She was a miracle, or a weapon, maybe both. But when she looked at him, her eyes softened again. "You promised me a home. I still believe you." And though the hunt was not over, though the slavers would never forgive what they had done, he nodded. "Yes, I will keep that promise." High above, on the ridges they had left behind, more horns sounded. The slavers had lost the chase, but they would not give up. The pursuit had only begun. The river was behind them, but the traveler knew it would not save them for long. Slavers were stubborn. Hunters would regroup, and when they came again, they would bring more than beasts and blades. Kissed the girl saying, on a fallen tree, her breath uneven. Sweat dripped down her face. The chains on her wrists shook as her hands trembled. She had used too much power, and it had left her weak. He knelt beside her. "You need to rest." She shook her head. "We don't have time. They will come." Her voice was right. Already the sound of horns carried faintly through the hills. The pursuit had not ended. It had only grown. The traveler tightened his grip on his blade. He looked around the valley. Ahead lay rocky cliffs, jagged and high, impossible to climb quickly. The river raged behind. There was no escape. For the first time since this began, he realized the truth. They would have to stand and fight. The hunters came at dusk. Dark shapes moved across the ridges. Their numbers doubled now. Dozens of them, armored and armed, their beasts snarling with hunger. The slavers had sent their best. The girl stood slowly, her legs unsteady, but her eyes sharp. "They will not take me back." The traveler nodded. "Then we make them pay for trying." He led her to the narrowest part of the valley, where the cliffs closed in. The space would limit the hunters, forcing them to fight in smaller numbers. He planted his feet firmly, blade in hand, pistol ready. The girl raised her chained hands, her breath heavy. Sparks of light flickered faintly in her eyes, and then the hunters charged. The first wave came fast, 3 beasts and their riders. The traveler moved like lightning, his blade slashed across one beast's throat, blood spraying against the rocks. He ducked low, firing his pistol into another rider's chest. The third beast lunged, but the girl screamed and the ground shook. The creature stumbled, crashing into its rider as both fell. The second wave followed. Arrows cut through the air, their tips glowing with strange fire. The traveler deflected one, but another grazed his arm. Levi. Nang a burning wound. He clenched his teeth, ignoring the pain. The girl stepped forward. Chains rattled. Her eyes blazed. She raised her hands high, and a burst of force exploded outward. The arrows bent in the air, turning back toward the hunters who fired them. Screams echoed as their own weapons struck them down. The traveler looked at her in shock. "You're stronger than before." Her voice shook. "The more I fight, the more it awakens. But it hurts." He wanted to tell her to stop, to save her strength, but there was no stopping now. The hunters regrouped. This time they came in a line, shields raised, moving as one. Their leader stepped forward, tall and armored, his voice booming. "Give her to us, human. She is ours. She is property." The traveler raised his blade. "She belongs to no one." The leader laughed. "Then you will die with her." The charge began. Steel clashed. Sparks lit the darkening valley. The traveler fought with all the skill of a soldier, every strike sharp, every move precise. He cut down one hunter, then another, but they pressed harder, surrounding him. The girl stood behind him, her voice rising in a cry that shook the cliffs. Her chains glowed with strange light. She pulled her hands apart, and the metal snapped. For the first time, her wrists were free. The glow spread across her body. She lifted both arms, and the valley itself seemed to obey. Rocks tore from the cliffs, crashing down on hunters. The ground split, sending beasts tumbling into cracks. The leader staggered but did not fall. He roared in fury, charging at her with his massive blade. The traveler moved to block him, but the girl stepped forward first. Her voice rang out like thunder. "I am not yours!" She raised her hand and the leader froze mid-strike. His body shook, his blade trembling in the air. His eyes widened with fear. Then, with a final cry, she hurled him back. His armored body slammed against the rocks, shattering stone. Silence followed. The battlefield was still. Smoke rose. Bodies lay scattered. The few hunters left alive fled into the hills, their courage broken. The girl stood in the center of it all, her chest heaving, her hands glowing faintly. Then slowly, the light faded. Her knees buckled. She would have fallen if the traveler had not caught her. "You did it," he whispered. Her voice was weak but steady. "No, we did it." He looked at her, truly looked. She was no longer the chained girl from the cage. She was something far greater, something the slavers had tried to create but could never control. She was free. The traveler carried her to the edge of the valley, where the firelight of the battle could no longer reach. He set her down gently against the rocks. Her eyes fluttered open, tired but alive. "You kept your promise," she whispered. He nodded. "And I'll keep it again. We're not done yet. We still have to reach the ship." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Then we will." And as the stars lit the sky above them, the traveler knew one thing for certain. This fight had only been the beginning. The valley was behind them now. The battle was won, but the traveler knew it was not the end. Slavers did not forgive, and the empire they served was vast. The hunters they defeated were only the beginning. The girl walked beside him, her wrists finally free of chains. The broken metal still clung loosely to her ankles, but she moved with new strength, every step steady, every breath sure. Her eyes no longer looked down at the ground. They looked ahead, toward the horizon. The traveler studied her in silence. She was not the same girl he had first seen in that cage. She had been reborn in fire, pain, and defiance. And though her power still frightened him, it also inspired him. "You should rest," he said softly. She shook her head. "I can't. Not yet. We need to reach your ship before they send more." He knew she was right. Every second mattered now. The mountains loomed ahead, dark against the night sky. Somewhere beyond them, hidden in a canyon, his ship waited. Small, old, but fast enough to break the sky. If they could reach it, they had a chance. But the path was harsh. Rocks crumbled under their boots. The air grew colder. The girl stumbled once, and he reached to steady her. She gave him a quick smile, weary but grateful. "You're different," he said, almost without meaning to. Her brow furrowed. "Different how?" "You fight like a soldier. You stand like one. But you still speak with hope, even after everything." She looked away, her voice low. "Hope is the only thing they couldn't chain." The words struck him deeply. He nodded and they walked on. By dawn, they reached the canyon. The traveler's heart lifted at the sight of his ship, hidden beneath a tarp of camo netting, its hull scratched and old but still intact. The girl's eyes widened. "It's real," she whispered. "You weren't lying." "I told you," he said with a small smile. "I'll take you home." But before they could move closer, a sound cut through the still air. Engines. The traveler's blood ran cold. From the sky, dark shapes descended. Slaver craft, sleek and sharp, their wings slicing the air. Soldiers dropped from them, armored and armed, surrounding the canyon. The girl's face hardened. "They found us." He pulled his pistol, his jaw tight. "Of course they did. They won't stop until one of us is dead." The slaver commander stepped forward, his armor marked with cruel symbols. His voice carried across the canyon. "You've run far enough, human. Hand over the girl. She belongs to us." The traveler raised his blade. "She belongs to no one." The commander sneered. "Then you will die for her." The soldiers moved in, their weapons glowing with deadly light. The traveler and the girl stood back to back. For a moment, the world slowed. "Can you fight?" he asked. Her eyes glowed faintly, fire building within. "Always." The battle exploded. Bolts of anise. Argy ripped through the air. The traveler's pistol fired again and again, each shot finding its mark. His blade cut through armor, sparks flying with every strike. The girl lifted her hands, and the ground itself responded. Stone rose into walls, blocking enemy fire. She cried out, and a wave of force sent soldiers crashing into the canyon walls. But the slavers kept coming. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Their numbers seemed endless. The commander strode forward, his massive blade raised high. "You are nothing but prey!" The traveler met him head-on. Steel clashed, echoing across the canyon. Sparks flew as blade struck blade, each strike harder than the last. The commander was powerful, but the traveler fought with something greater than skill. He fought with purpose. Beside him, the girl's power surged brighter. Her chains shattered completely, the last pieces falling to the ground. She raised her hands to the sky, and lightning cracked down, tearing through the slaver craft above. The soldiers faltered, fear breaking their formation. The commander turned in shock. "What are you?" The girl's voice rang like thunder. "Not yours." She thrust her hand forward, and a blast of raw energy struck the commander, hurling him across the canyon. His armor shattered, his body lay still. Silence followed. The remaining slavers fled, their craft rising quickly into the sky. They had lost. The traveler lowered his blade, breathing hard. He turned to the girl. She stood tall, the morning sun blazing behind her, her chains gone, her eyes fierce and alive. "You saved us," he said quietly. She shook her head. "We saved each other." For a long moment, they simply looked at one another. No words were needed. Then he nodded toward the ship. Come, it's time. The ship's engines roared to life, old but still strong. The traveler guided her aboard, and she stepped inside with wide eyes touching the worn metal walls as if they were sacred. "This is freedom," she whispered. He sat at the controls, his hands steady. Not yet, but soon. The ship lifted, rising through the canyon, through the clouds, toward the endless sky. She stood by the window, watching the world shrink beneath them. For the first time in years, the cage was gone. Chains were gone. She turned to him, her voice soft. "You promised to take me home. But where is home now?" He looked at her, his eyes steady. "Wherever we make it." Her lips curved into a small smile. "Then let's make it together." The stars stretched out before them, endless and bright. Behind them, the world of chains grew smaller, fading into memory. Ahead lay danger, mystery, and war, but also hope. And as the ship disappeared into the vast night sky, one truth echoed between them. This was not the end. It was only the beginning.